you're setting up yourself to a big deal of trouble, spiritually speaking. Assalamu alaikum. Back to scattered thoughts. Now I got a question from Muazzam. Muazzam? I think that's how you pronounce it. Muazzam in Arabic. Anyways, he sent it through Facebook. So Facebook page, link, description box, if you guys want to get a hold of me. And Muazzam's question: Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Muhammad. I wanted to ask your advice on a matter regarding sacred knowledge. An opportunity has arisen for me to study some Islamic law and finance on my law master's at university. I was also planning on going to a more traditional school for a year after I graduate to learn sacred sciences. Do you think it is appropriate to learn Islamic finance and law in a secular academic setting such as university in England? I would say it depends. You have to be very careful when it comes to Islamic studies in a Western context. Now, I should preface this with saying that my exposure to Islamic studies in the university setting is not at the graduate level. It's more of I get it from conversations and discussions. I did attend seminars. I do get to sit with people that are in these type of settings. I have friends who actually go through or have gone through graduate school in Islamic studies and Near Eastern studies, what they call, in university settings in the West. And so I have a good, I think, understanding of what's going on in there, and an appreciation of what you need to have in place before you engage in these studies. If you have no grounding at all in the Islamic tradition, you didn't sit down with teachers, scholars who taught you basics of Islamic law and, got you up to a level where you're proficient and competent enough, not in the ability to just recite what is obligatory, what is not obligatory, what is haram, what is impermissible, forbidden, all of this, not that level, but at the level of understanding. How is this law derived? Where does it come from? Why do we do certain things? Why don't we do certain things? In other words, the worldview. There is something that, there's no such thing as the way that they talk about secular university. They're trying to give you the impression that the education you're gaining is it's objective, it's neutral, it's value-free in some sense. The values that it cares about, most importantly, would be something to do to the extent of, or to the effect of, human rights, Universal Human Rights Declaration, freedom, liberty, freedom of speech. They talk about objectivity, rationalism. They give you these kind of sloganeering. It's slogans. It's nice slogans. Freedom, rationality, human rights. It's all these nice slogans. But if you get down to the actual root of the matter, like what is the worldview or the metaphysical worldview or foundation of your Islamic education in a university setting that is not Islamic, in a Western university setting? You have to recognize and realize that when it comes to social sciences, for you to advance in it, the majority of social scientists and those running the university setting right now, if you look at the statistics, they're atheists, liberal, left-leaning. Religion, as far as they're concerned, is an evolutionary adaptation. It's not really anything to do with divine inspiration or divine revelation. And so if you don't think that that is influencing how that subject is being taught, you're naive. That's one thing. The second thing, what is the umbrella that everything falls under right now in Western academia? If you want to become a rational person, if you want to be somebody who is considered as intellectual, as smart, what do you need to do? You need to get really good at being able at reducing any complex thing into its parts, and engage in the ability or develop your ability to explain away things. So you take something very complex that's coherent, that's kind of a structure, break it down into its components, and once you explain how these components kind of come together, then voila, you've explained the whole thing. it's an automatization of knowledge in that sense. But we know that if you just understand anything about chaos and emergence and all of that stuff, that the parts are never, the whole is not the sum of the parts. And so you can't just reduce something to its components. And the problem with reducing something to its components also is when you engage in graduate study, they give you a timeline, right? You have what? A master's, so it's a year, 2 years in some settings. So you have this period of time where you have to pick a topic. And for you to be able to complete that topic in a set amount of time to get your degree, you cannot encompass even the most major necessary works in that field for you to gain a proper understanding of it. So what ends up happening? You end up soundbiting. You end up not reading full texts, full books on the subject written by prominent figures in that field to understand how they develop their thought. You end up going to the index, finding the keyword, figuring out which pages they're in, go to those pages, read about it, and then take the passage you need to take, rephrase it in some way, provide your understanding, cite it, move on. And that's how you write your thesis. In no way can you say that you've understood what that scholar is talking about by just soundbiting what he's done. And that's really how it works in this academic setting. So you have this problem of a value system that is alien to you. You know, it's a materialistic, atheistic type of system that doesn't recognize any truth to revelation or divine inspiration or to the sunnah or any of that stuff. It's just, it explains the development of the law, including what the Prophet ﷺ even did or said to do or commanded to do. All of it becomes historicized and explained within a particular social and historical context that has no transcendent source from it. So the idea of وَمَا يَنطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ, that the Quran says that the Prophet ﷺ does not speak from his own whims and desires, but this is just divine inspiration and revelation, that doesn't enter into the equation. You have to explain it in material terms. And then this problem of you not being able to actually get into the nitty-gritty of, I mean, not everything that a scholar talks about can be isolated like that, because you might find the keywords in the index, but the overall methodology and the overall system of thought of the scholar is not to be found in the index. You have to read the whole text and gain a proper understanding and appreciation of it, and have a connection with teachers who can also check back with you, because these teachers have chains of transmission and study that go back all the way to the companions of the Prophet ﷺ and to the Prophet ﷺ ultimately. So if you have no grounding in any of this stuff and then you enter into this Western quote-unquote secular academic setting and you think you're going to get this degree and you get this piece of paper, right? And you think you have an understanding. You're setting up yourself to a big deal of trouble, spiritually speaking. The majority of people that enter into Islamic studies, and although I don't have, this is just kind of anecdotal evidence just from observation and talking with people in the field, the majority of them haven't had a proper traditional study. They've approached it without any grounding in the tradition. They enter into it, and so you end up with a lot of just funky opinions coming out of people that have studied in these Western settings, and they think that they've understood the tradition because they've automatized it, they've taken it into its component parts, which they think is its component parts, and they're using a structure that they basically inherited from their supervisors, because let's face it, when you enter into a master's degree, you have a supervisor, and your supervisor has a particular trajectory that they want to go in. So he or she could, you know, be a proponent of a particular theory, and so they're going to mold your understanding of how to approach the text, what to come up with it, and give you some freedom, some intellectual room to allow you to come up with conclusions out of your, of your own. The problem is that freedom is an illusion, is an illusory freedom. It's not real freedom, and it's simply because you're working within a structure that has expectations and it has limitations. And if you work from outside that structure and come up with things that don't really jive with that, they're not going to accept it. They're going to tell you to go back and think about it a bit more, or challenge you in ways that, because you weren't prepared and don't understand the great scheme that you're operating within, you're just going to, capitulate to it and just take it. So I think Mu'adham, and anybody that's why I'm choosing this, because I think it's a problem that needs to, be paid attention to. Anybody that's interested in Islamic studies in Western context, that's genuinely wanting to advance their education, I really think you should take a year off and go off and study. You don't have to travel to, Morocco or Mauritania or whatever. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying you need to go off for a year and dedicate a full year to studying with traditional scholars who have a connection with the tradition, not people that were just autodidacts or people that were, they just have a degree from some university. I don't care what the university is. I don't care if it's Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. That degree means nothing. Zip, nada, zero when it comes to Islamic studies if you have no grounding in the Islamic tradition at all. Nothing. In fact, it could be harmful to you because you would have set yourself up in a way. If you look at, I remember I came across a paper a while back, and the leading academics in that field, they're like miserable, faithless, and from a spiritual perspective. I'm not saying like miserable like they're depressed. I'm saying like from a spiritual perspective, it's a miserable existence. I know this comes off a little bit harsh, but that's just the reality of it. Because when you take the religion and reduce it in a materialist structure, an atheistic structure that does not recognize divine revelation, that there is no such thing as La ilaha illallah, there is no such thing as the Prophet ﷺ is receiving revelation. It's all just a product of patriarchy, misogyny. It's a product of social structures and power struggles. That's all that it is. And what are you going to end up with that? Like, you're going into that with this all noble intentions and you have no grounding. You're going to come out the other end either an atheist yourself, or your very understanding of and relationship with Islam is going to be warped to a very dangerous degree. So, and this really goes into another scattered thought that I wanted to record about just worldviews in general. You have to recognize that the worldview, the way that you walk in the world today, as a byproduct of your academic instruction. We go through this education, and I did a scattered thought about this a while back, but just the worldview that you go through life with devoids, it takes out God from the equation. As Nietzsche said, God is dead. That's the worldview that we have today. And so I think you should take a year off, Mu'adham. Go study, get grounded, understand how these things come together, and develop within yourself an understanding of what your role is in the world and how it runs and the reality behind all of these things. Develop an insight so that when you do go and begin these studies, first of all, you still have a connection, so you can always check back with your teachers, and that way they can keep you grounded and remind you just in case you start to forget and become heedless. And secondly, to be able to see the naked emperor for what he is, that he's naked. Anyway, I hope that helps you, man. I think we'll leave it at that. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.